important to know that these attitudinal foundations um, uh, are somehow related to each other, and they are interdependent. As you improve in one, it also improves the other. Um, and so let's talk a little bit about benefits of mindfulness. Um, Believe it or not, at any given time, we have something like 50 to 60,000 thoughts. And thoughts can also be very addictive, and we repeat those thoughts day after day. So slowing the pace of thoughts is actually a blessing. And that's one of the important benefits of mindfulness. Accepting things as they are, um, uh, enjoying every moment that we spend. Also, we know that as people become more compassionate, more mindful, or they improve their mindfulness, they also become more compassionate toward themselves and others. One of the most important things that I hear when I work with people, they say that after a while they learn not to react to situations, and they just pause and respond. It's huge. In fact, in some of the studies that I did, this is one of the things that a lot of people mention. Some other benefits, uh, emotion regulation is another benefit. So that's why we can use it for people who are depressed or anxious. We know that physically it helps with lowering blood pressure, lowering our pain. Um, it helps with the sleep. But and another very, very important thing, something called neuroplasticity. And that's based on the notion that we have the ability to change our brain. It's something that maybe 10, 15 years ago, people didn't know about it, but it's huge. As we practice mindfulness, we also change literally the structure of our brain. And the other important thing is that it lowers our stress. And we know that stress can be a killer. Now, since stress is such an important thing, managing stress is such an important thing, I thought, can I talk a little bit about the stress and what it does to us? And then I get back to the mindfulness as well. So basically, stress is the body's response to any demand or threat. It can be subjective, a subjective condition, like meaning that something that is stressful for one person can be not as stressful for another one. For instance, I don't mind talking in front of people, but there are some people who get very upset talking in front of, but it's hard for them to do that. It's also important to note that not all stress is bad. We have something called eustress, which means good stress. Good stress is for short term, and it will help us to achieve things, finish up jobs, get ready for exams. So stress, if it is short term, is not a bad thing. Um, we also want to talk about temporary stress and chronic stress. Temporary stress is something that we can handle. Let's say you have to go for an operation for a few weeks. You are worried and upset, and eventually, when it's done, you are out of the situation. But chronic stress is the one that really hurt us. And if you look at the effect of it on different parts of the body, from brain to back to fertility to heart and sexual desires, mouth, dryness of the mouth. People who have asthma or have allergic, they get worse. It affects our sleep. It affects our GI system. And also people either, when they're stressed out, they eat a lot, and it affects their metabolism. And basically, it lowers our immune system. So if mindfulness can help us to manage stress, it actually is a very helpful thing. Just a few more things about stress, and then I relate it to our topic again. When we are under stress, it affects us cognitively. It also affects our behavior and emotions. when you're stressed out, you cannot concentrate about your reading or doing what you want to do. Some people uh, eat a lot. Some people get upset. Some people use alcohol. So we respond when we are under stress. We also respond to it behaviorally and emotionally. Now, what I want to talk about is the source of stress also. And you see that source of stress can be either external, like our jobs, our relationships, our financial situation, and being too busy. They can all be external. But the internal one is the one that a lot of times we are not aware. And that's why I wanted to actually get to this discussion about the stress. Um, our way of thinking. Mm, Earlier, I talked about the fact that we have 50 or 60,000 thoughts per day. Our negative self-talks. If you think that you have to be perfect and it's not okay to make mistake, these are all stuff that are internally. And practicing mindfulness will help a lot with our self-talks and how we we create stress for ourselves. Also, obviously, some people who are delusional or have hallucinations, that can also cause, but that's for serious mental situations. What I wanted to do is talk briefly about a couple of studies that I did and to actually show how mindfulness can help us. So when I was in Washington, D.C., in my private practice, I combined um, uh, holistic modalities and psychiatric techniques. And I noticed that how people improve, but improving anecdotal is not as important as actually doing working with a group of people. So when I first came to UNCW, what I did, I selected 20 patients from 2 clinics and I taught them mindfulness and yoga and self-compassion for 8 weeks and measured certain stuff before and after. And it was just incredible how the changes was just very significant. That study had this kind of a problem because my numbers were low. I only had 20 patients. And also, I didn't have any control group, meaning that I couldn't compare those who got it and those who didn't get it. So I said, okay, I'm going to do another study. And I applied for a grant. And this time I sent something like 11,000 emails to college students. And I looked for people who were depressed or anxious. And I found about 90 to 100 people who qualified. And what I did, I actually divided them to 3 groups. And 30 of them, I taught them yoga, 30 of them, I taught them mindfulness, and 30 of them, I taught them nothing. It was just, they were control group. And without I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but I want to show you some of the results. I'm just going to skip about this particular research got published and information about it is under the reference. If you are interested to learn about the details of it, you can go check it out. But in the interest of time, what I would like to do is just go to the segment that has to do with the results I wanted to show it basically the results show that anxiety and stress symptoms was significantly decreased, and also the mindfulness and self-compassion was improved, and also their stress decreased. And this was different for people who were in control group. Just to show you a little bit more, I'm going to show you some of the graphs. So if you look at depression, the higher line is the control group, and the other two, one is mindfulness group, the other one is yoga group. You see that the control group did not change, but the rate of depression decreased significantly for people. Let's go to anxiety. You see that again, control group, their anxiety did not change, but yoga group and mindfulness group changed significantly. Look at their stress. Again, you see that their stress level also significantly decreased. And look at their self-compassion. Their self-compassion increased, but in mindfulness and yoga group, the control group did not. And then overall, also the mindfulness scale. You see that people who did not practice their control group, mindfulness did not improve, but the other two groups did. So basically, the conclusion was that mindfulness practices can actually improve, help people with depression and anxiety and stress. And there are thousands of studies that also more or less show that some of the benefits that I talked earlier. Let's talk a little bit about types of mindfulness practices. And again, if you had some more questions about the study, the reference is there, and I'll also be more than glad to talk about it further if you want, but I want to make sure that you also get to other parts. So there are multiple types of mindfulness practices, from formal sitting meditation to breath awareness, body awareness, noticing your thoughts, walking meditation, walking in nature, eating mindfully, practices such as Tai Chi and yoga, they are referred to them as meditation in motion, and also living mindfully. The goal is that eventually we can do living, whatever we do it in a mindful way. I'm going to go over each one of them, and we're going to practice some of them. So breath awareness is our breath is a very powerful tool. And as you know, we have voluntary and involuntary breathing. Is under our control to some extent. But sometimes we forget to use it to our benefit. So I'm going to talk to discuss abdominal breathing and maybe practice it together. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it or not. If you are a singer or if you have been in choir, you probably are familiar with abdominal breathing. I used to sing when I was in college. I used to be in choir, so I very much remember the difference between when you're breathing correctly or not. So let's just sit tall. We're going to practice abdominal breathing. Put your hands on your belly, and if you think of babies, when they breathe, they have a nice abdominal breathing. You notice that how nicely and softly their belly moves. But as we get older, we forget to do abdominal breathing. So while you have your hands on your belly, as you inhale, expand the belly. And as you exhale, bring the navel close to spine. We have a tendency to do chest breathing, which is not helpful. So let's do abdominal breathing. Inhale, expand the belly, and exhale, bring the navel close to spine. Let's do 2 more times. Inhale, expand the belly, and exhale, bring the navel close to spine. And 1 more time on your own. And now see if you can put your hands on your lap and do 2 more times of this without the support of the hands. Inhale and exhale. So just focusing on your breath is a mindful practice. And a lot of times by just doing that simple action, you can calm yourself, or you can just take your mind off things that are not helping you. Let's do body awareness. So not the body awareness is when you actually focus on various parts of your body. And a lot of times people find it very helpful when they can't sleep. So I'm going to guide you through a body awareness, and you just, the best that you can just follow my suggestions. I usually have some soft music on, but I know that it's hard to put music with Zoom because of the time. There's like a couple of seconds of difference, so I can skip that music. But for body awareness, just one more time, sitting tall, and if possible, close your eyes or lower your eyelids and just notice the body. And notice that the body is breathing. And find your breath anywhere you can find it, in your belly, in your chest, in your nostrils. Just find your breath. And observe your breath with care, with compassion, with gratitude, and without any judgment. Just find your breath. And now bringing your attention to your to your toes. We're going to have a scanning of the body from toes all the way up to the head. So bringing your attention to your toes, just notice your feet touching the floor. Maybe your shoes are on, your socks, whatever. Just notice your toes and your feet. And gradually go up, notice your ankles. Maybe notice if you are wearing a socks, what is around the ankle. Going to your shins. And gradually going up to your knees and thighs. Just notice without judging. And next, go to your sitting area and notice where your sitting area is touching the chair and how it feels. And going further up, notice where your pants or your skirts or whatever you're wearing is touching your waist. And bring your attention to your arms. Notice where your hands are. Maybe they're on your laps, or maybe they're on your desk. And just your lower arms and upper arms and your shoulders. Just notice. And now bring your attention to your upper chest and your back area. And just gently go up to your shoulders and your neck, where we have a lot of tension in that area. A lot of times people put their stress, the effect of the stress on their neck and shoulder. Just notice. And going further up to your head and face, the muscles of your face, your jaws, your forehead, your head, your ears. Just notice without judging. And now bring your attention to what you can hear where you are. Maybe there is a sound of air condition. Maybe where you are, you can hear the cars passing by. Maybe you can hear your breath. And then see if you can find one or two emotions that you're aware of it. And just choose two and see where in your body you're feeling those emotions. And choose one that is stronger Just focus on that. And bring your attention back to your breath. Breathe in and breathe out. And whenever you're ready, softly open your eyes. So that was a type of mindfulness practice, and it was called body awareness. If you have difficulty sleeping, that's the perfect way to fall asleep. If you just go from head to toe or from toe to head, a lot of times people find it very helpful. Usually, when I am in talk about these things in person, I usually ask people, about the experience and what they heard and not heard, but it would be a little bit difficult. But maybe at the end, during the discussion time, if you want to share with me about the experience, I would love to hear about that. Let's go to another type of mindfulness. That's mental noting. Um, uh, as you are sitting and focusing on your breath, if you just think of whatever, just notice it and let it go. For instance, in the morning, you plan to have 5 minutes of quiet time, and the thoughts are coming up. Instead of getting lost in them, just notice and let it go. It might be also a good time for me to talk about some techniques that we can use when the thoughts come. Because a lot of times when I tell people just focus on your breath, people say, oh, my thoughts are just coming in and I don't know what to do with them. So I'm going to share with you a few techniques that you can use with that. One of them is basically, as you notice that you're thinking, just see if you can give them away or put them on something that is moving. Let's say a boat on a river. Give your thoughts and let them go with the river. Or clouds in the sky. That's another way you can just let go of the thoughts. Also, sometimes people tell me that just the fact that they focus on their breath and they are busy focusing on the breath, it helps them to let go of the thoughts. Another good one is counting. Like inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Just the fact that you're counting will stop the thoughts and you can focus just on your breath. And people usually, or you can have maybe some other ideas. One person said, whenever I have thoughts that I don't want, I just ask the birds to come and pick them up and leave them. So you can also come up with some creative way. So dealing with thought is one of the challenges that people have when they are trying to sit and just focus on the body or breath. Now we also have walking meditation. Walking meditation is particularly really good for people who have a hard time to sit, people who are anxious and they cannot just sit for even 5-10 minutes. So when you Google the word walking meditation, they usually talk about walking slow and paying attention to how your feet is touching the floor, which is one way that, for instance, some of the Zen centers talk about it and they practice it at the beginning of the meditation. But you can also use any type of walking. For instance, it's a nice day, you go for a walk. And instead of thinking about what you have to do later or what you did before, who said what, just use your 5 senses and just as you're walking, just pay attention to what is around you. For instance, pay attention to the beautiful sky with the clouds. Or if you are by the ocean, look at the ocean. Or if there's a nice breeze, notice the breeze. Or if there is any aromas, just notice them. So instead of getting lost in thoughts as you're walking, use all your senses to enjoy as you're walking, what you're experiencing it. Some people also use walking meditation, particularly in nature. because then they can use all their senses even more. So there is I don't know if you have any labyrinth in your area. We have two labyrinths in my area, one at the back of a church, one in some kind of a park. And I think in California, there are also a few labyrinths. People actually can just walk through that and just focus on their walk and the nature that they are there. And it's a lovely practice. Um, then we have meditation in motion. There are two practices that people refer to them as meditation in motion. One of them is Tai Chi, which has its roots in traditional Chinese medicine. And the other one is also yoga. And a lot of times people say, when I practice Tai Chi or when I practice my yoga, I feel so good. People feel good because it's a meditative practice. Because when you're doing those things, you're not thinking about stuff. You're just focusing on the breath and the body. And actually, in a couple of minutes, we may have time also to do some of those some yoga movements. But let me show you, in case you're not familiar with Tai Chi. This is a picture of a group of people practicing Tai Chi outside. When I was in South Korea, you see people doing all that all the time. Um, um, and before practicing a little bit of a yoga or chair yoga, I wanted to say a few things about yoga in case you're not familiar. Um, the word yoga in Sanskrit means union. It's a union of body, mind, and breath. And it's also based on Ayurvedic medicine, which is personalized uh, to each person as they receive the treatment. And we now know that it helps people with depression, with PTSD, anxiety. It's really helpful. Um, it helps with relaxation, stability, strength, flexibility, balance, energy. It has all kind of benefits. Um, where I work, most of my patients are 60 and above because I work in a cardiac rehab. And I actually teach a chair yoga. You don't have to make a pretzel with your body. I actually teach a chair yoga class to people, and majority of them are over 60 and 70, and they absolutely love it. And whenever I introduce them to that, when they are done, they say, "Oh, it feels so good." It feels so good because it's a meditative practice. I have to tell you a little bit story about this gentleman. He's my husband. Um, my patients used to tell me that they forget what we did in the class and they wanted to have something to practice at home. So I said, I'm going to make you a manual. So there's a little funny story. I told my husband if he would be my model. He didn't realize that I actually wanted him to be my model. He thought that he's going to take the pictures. And then when in a few months when I said, okay, let's get it started, he didn't want to do it. But eventually he was a trooper and he accepted to do it. So that's him doing a chair yoga pose. And this is actually Karate Kid pose. So at the end of class, I usually give people a manual that they can practice at home. So let's talk about eating mindfully. It's really important that when you are eating, you actually only eat rather than watching TV or doing all kind of or reading newspaper. Um, um, in one-to-one in classes that I have in person, I will usually try eating something. Like for instance, let's say this tangerine. And instead of just opening it and without looking at it, opening it and eating it, it's important that you actually smell it, look at how the skin looks. When you open it, smell it. So you want to use all your senses when you are, if you are having your plate for dinner or lunch. It's just good to look at it, the different colors, the aroma, the smell. So paying attention to eating and how we eat is really important. Another important part is that if you have a tendency to eat fast, you will probably eat more than what you need because it takes 20 minutes for our stomach and our mind talk to each other. In order for you to know that you have eaten enough, you need 20 minutes. So if you eat fast, you you end up eating more than just your body, but you need, because your mind doesn't know that you have eaten enough. So it's really important that you also eat slowly. I usually ask people, how many times do you think we need to chew our food? Um, and they say something about 30 chewing is the number that is recommended. Obviously, we're not talking about ice cream. We're talking about something that needs chewing. But and I doubt that people really do 30. But if you even do 10, a lot of times I think people chew their food after 3 or 4 chewing. So just pay attention how many times you chew when you're eating. Um, I also think that if we eat mindfully, it becomes a spiritual practice. If you just think of how many people help us to bring the food to us, it shows how connected we are to all people. So, like if you just think of this little tangerine, how many people had to, from the time that they it was a orchard, and who cut them and put them in a box and drove them and brought them to store. Thousands of people have to help for this tangerine to get to me and you. So it becomes really a spiritual practice, in my opinion. So the final goal is for us to, to live mindfully, meaning no matter what we are doing, we'll be present for it. If you have a conversation with a friend, you want to be present. If you're taking a shower, when people tell me, I don't have time to sit 5-10 minutes every morning, and I tell them, you take a shower. So of course I take a shower. So if you take a shower, make that shower a mindful practice. And instead of thinking about what you're going to do next or what happened before, just pay attention to the water going through over your skin, and the soap or whatever you're using. It's a very the experience of taking a shower is very sensual, and we sometimes just get so busy with other things. So, practicing mindfulness, it could be formal sitting meditation. It can be informal, no matter what you're doing. It can be done, and also we can have some intensive retreat practices. What I wanted to show, and I forgot, and I'm going to do it right now, is that if you have difficulty sitting meditation, include some yoga poses. For instance, you're sitting on a chair, just inhale and raise your shoulders, and exhale, bring it down. Or you can just go down and then inhale to go up. So you can bring your knees to your chest, inhale and bring it down. So including the body. If you have difficulty sitting, you can just include the body, like some of the yoga poses. You can also be sitting on a chair and do them. So let me talk a little bit about some practical points. That it's important that you set your intention. For instance, it's the beginning of the year. Set your intention and say, oh, from this point on, I'm going to have formal practice, maybe every morning for 5 minutes, sit and just do abdominal breathing. And you'll be amazed how it's going to change your day. Where you are practicing, make sure it's not clutter. The clutter space doesn't help us. If possible, practice on the same place on a regular basis rather than changing it. Then you get to it faster. For instance, I have a chair in my sunroom. That is where I do my practice. So when I sit there, right away I get into that mode. If you have difficulty with that, start with 5 minutes. And then maybe after a while, you notice that, oh, I just sat there for 10 minutes and I even didn't notice. Very, very important is to practice on a regular basis. If you practice 5 minutes every day, it's better than practicing 1 hour once a week. Research supports that idea over and over and over. Some people do better when they have a guided meditation. And there are all kinds of tapes that guide you. And again, music and visualization can help. I'm not sure if you have time for visualization, but visualization is also something that helps you a lot. Um, Another thing that I wanted to make sure to cover is the how to sustain it is, again, start easy and gradually increase your time. When you practice mindfulness, the concept of time and place loses itself. And again, you're sitting there for 5 minutes, you think you're going to sit there, and then you look at the clock, you've been there for 10 minutes. Use audio visuals if you want. There are wonderful, wonderful apps out there. Calm is one, Headspace is one. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Dan Harris. He's a journalist. He actually teaches on he has a show on weekends in the morning with ABC. A few years ago on live TV, he had a panic attack, and people encouraged him to go learn mindfulness, and he did. And now he goes around and actually teaches mindfulness. He has written a book called 10% Happier. People who practice mindfulness are overall happier people. And I just heard that as of this past June, he canceled one of his TV shows, and he created an app called 10% Happier. And I believe that UCLA mindfulness app is also there and it's free. The other apps, initially it's free and then you pay, but I believe that the UCLA mindfulness app is free. Another thing that you can do is also attend the meditation groups. Like in our area, we have centers that people on Mondays get together for half an hour and just meditate together. There is a gentleman in California with the name of Elisha Goldstein that every Sunday from 12 to 12:30 has free meditation by Zoom and online. So you can just, and it's free of charge. It's very good. If you just go to community at elishagoldstein.com, you can easily get on that. Another good thing that you can do is actually go to some conferences after a while. You may start practicing it initially, and then after a while you fall off the wagon and you're not doing it. So I love to go every 3 or 4 years, go to some retreats. We have some wonderful centers up in Northeast US, but I'm sure you guys also have some on the West Coast. And then read books or watch videos. There are all kind of stuff that you can use. I have the name of some wonderful books in here that you can use. Have the list to the two studies that I just briefly talked about them. But if you wanted to learn more about them, it's there. And then before I get to question and answer, I want to share something that a friend of mine sent to me, and I wanted to read that to you. It's a write-up that this friend sent me. It's called Flight Number 2021. And if you just want to, if you allow me to read that, I think it actually applies some of the stuff that we talk about. So that's how it goes. It says, welcome abroad, flight number 2021. We are preparing for an on-time departure into the new year. Please make sure your attitudes and actions are secured and locked in an upbeat and upright position. All self-destructive thoughts should be turned off at this time and remain off forever. Any negativity, hate, and discouragement must remain completely stowed. In the unlikely event we lose altitude while under pressure, simply reach up and pull down a prayer. Prayers will automatically activate if you have faith. With faith, you will be able to assist other passengers. There will be no baggage allowed on this flight. Now the captain has cleared us for takeoff. Our first destination is love, with continuing stops at peace and joy. Before you deplane, make sure you do not leave any of your hopes and dreams behind. Once these are lost, they cannot be reclaimed. If there is anything we can do to make your flight more enjoyable, please do the same by paying it forward. Happy New Year. And I hope that we can apply some of these things for our life. And if you like this write-up, please feel free to send it to your friends. I think it's a good way to start the new year. And I have my numbers, my phone number there if you have any question. And if you have any question, we still have some time for questions and answers.